Hey there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an Object Show fan who's on a journey to know everything about object shows. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome in to Object Catchup. This is where we discuss Object Show episodes right after watching them. Whether they're new or old, famous or unknown, it doesn't matter. We will get to it all. Now, for today, we have a main topic, absolutely, and that is BFDIE, because a couple of days late, I am gonna be talking about the last few episodes of BFDIE. I specifically decided to skip talk about 9 when it released because I was on break. And then when I came back, I was like, yo, let's wait for BFDI 10, that way we can cover them both together. BFDI 10 released a couple days ago, so it's time to take a look at it. The last time we take a look at BFDI 8, it was episode 8, where we need to reassemble the machinery. Sticker caused a big old ruckus by, stealing somebody else's and painting it over, meaning that it's theirs, and they helped out construct Fern's thing, and then they took Needy's thing, and they took Needy's thing to make it Fern's thing, and then Needy didn't have a thing, and then we tried to help Needy, but then at that moment, it just did not quite work, as Sidewalkie managed to get theirs done. So Needy officially got eliminated. 4 people left. Let's see who gets out in BFD 9, the root of all evil. Here we go. Alright, that is episode 9 of BFDIE, the root of all evil. So, that is a nice little episode. I will say that I personally do like that quite a bit. The challenge for this episode ends up being a combination of all of the previous challenges. It's the classic. It has a tiny twist on it though, but it's not a race, it's a round. Each challenge is the mini version of it, is a round, and depending on how you place in that round, you get points, either 5, 3, 2, or 0, I think. So like, in general, it ends up relatively alright. I will say that, as usual, we are still very much so carried by the concept, because it's an excellent little concept, you know? Still, the concept of doing all of the previous challenges, whether it's a round point-based system, whether it's something else, it's just a system that works. There's not a lot to it. And like, in general, it ends up being still quite strong. And now we have ourselves the main topic is that after the interview and Sidewalkie and Money say that they're going to send everybody to Nightmare Island, Fern and Sticker are going, yo, what if we were together, because they can't win. If they win, we're fucked, right? So, you know, if we were together, then we're not sending each other there, so that's fine, right? Fern, however, doesn't really like Sticker, of course, because Sticker keeps cheating, and they go like, yo, Sticker, don't cheat, alright, if you want to work with me, which we do end up doing that. However, Sticker proceeds to be failing pretty miserably, because, yeah, Sticker, without cheating, is not great, because, of course, Sticker suffers from the least physicality of the 4. They have a couple of little abilities, right, like, you know, being able to stick onto things if really needed, but like, in general, their physical body allows for the least than all of the other ones. So, and they can be taken advantage of more easily, so that's why the Sticker cheats a little bit. Of course, a part of it is just because they're mischievous, and what is that? Your character can be a little mischievous from time to time, come on, y'all Sticker haters. But yeah. Money ends up cheating instead, because we're like, alright, you know, if we're only looking at whether Sticker's cheating, we're not going to be looking at whether Money's cheating. But yeah, Sidewalkie and Money are just clear in the park. In what is a fun, it's a fun challenge. First of all, because the challenge is good, and second of all, because it's just like a very nice, there's just a lot of interaction, you know, which is good. This is what you want, right, in one of these, like, last or second to last challenges. You don't want, like, a solitary challenge like the swimming one, where the characters are just kind of doing it on their own, right? You want this very interaction-based challenge, and in here we have a very interaction-based script, right? With, Sidewalkie working with Money, then Sticker working with Fern trying to get Sticker to not cheat, and then eventually Sidewalkie gets him out of Money, then teams up with the other two are not convinced, then they team up with them, and then there's Money that's getting mad at them now for the trio teaming together, and then Sidewalkie and Fern are trying to debate on what the best tactic is. Like you see, there's a lot of metagaming going on between the actual 4 contestants, and this means they'll talk more, they'll disagree, they'll have opinions, they'll have things they want to do. All of these things are going to be correct, and all of these things are important and good details, because that gives in a little bit more personality to the characters as a whole, which is what we need. So overall, I would say that is an enjoyable moment here for BFDIE 9, which overall I think is a success. Even like in general, I do think that BFDIE has been pretty solid. I think that like those earlier episodes were made, I don't know, I've heard like saying that they were better on average, but I would say nah. I think that like there was a little bit of kind of like hype at seeing the system again, and then you kind of end up having it sort of like when the system gets normalized, you kind of start getting less hyped up about the episodes, and when there's also less characters, it'll kind of do that as well. So in general, I would say that I think BFD episodes have kept themselves to nearly the same quality than they did before. But anyways, yes, as the events of the episode is, Sticker and Fern are just absolutely failing until Money eventually ends up continuing to be evil for no apparent reason up until we reach the 3-legged race, and Sidewalkie intentionally decides to ditch Money to try to get them to protest against them in a way, because it's just kind of like a thing, right? Because Money ended up being like, all right, I'm nice and that didn't work, so let's be overly evil, right? That's kind of the idea, the plot point that we're seeing here. And so far we end up having just kind of that ending up to an exaggerated degree. I will admit that Money's very strong though. Like the physicality that Money ends up having is actually really, really solid. Even against Sidewalkie, they manage to put up a good fight every time. Then eventually Sidewalkie ends up agreeing to the alliance. They can't apologize. That's not in their nature. They literally explode. But they do end up apologizing. Fern ends up winning, overtakes Money, and then we end up agreeing. Have Sticker win, get Sidewalkie second. Challenge is to rebuild the sticker box, which is the important challenge because that needs to work. Sticker runs away with the pieces. Money ends up taking Sticker instead. We end up actually doing the BFDIE 1 thing, which is unbelievable. I was like, there is no way they did that. Because like there's a certain point where that's just a meme now. Right? Like, that's just an object show meme, like the BFDI, the BFDIE 1 thing. Now, okay, we do see, because, like, the reason why it is weird is because it's, like, usually I feel like we do sort of leave away the direct memes, right, to do more, original things, because, like, while BFDI does do a lot of rethinking its own jokes, and it does that all the time. BFDIE does that. It does that with times where like the joke is mostly confined to BFDI, right? Like doing the weird maze, like whoa, that ends up existing. Is a joke that's mostly confined to BFDI. You don't see it that many other places. This BFDIE joke is a joke that BFDI doesn't really do, right? Repeating the BFDIE 1 thing. But other shows do all the time as kind of a joke. So I'm low-key surprised that they did it. They also do thing in a Sonic Loop-de-Loop. Was that in the original? I feel like that was not in BFDIE 1. But maybe I'm wrong. But Sidewalkie ends up having a battle. Fern and Sticker successfully plant it. Toothpaste Sticker Ball says that Fern did the most. Then they proceed to agree that Sticker did the most, and then Fern goes like, and then Sidewalkie ends up getting third, which is tied with Money though, which means that we end up needing to rip the tie to do the tiebreaker, because this is the classic tiebreaker that the announcer always does. You think just because bro is in a different show that they're not the same. And then Sidewalk ends up just doing it. Money ends up getting eliminated, and then we're left with our final three, which temporarily joins forces. Still, they're not like too bonded to any of them, so I think it's going to be a solid battle here in BFDI 10. I will admit, looking at it, because they're all people that like they can technically get along. You know, Fern, Sidewalk, and Sticker if really necessary, but overall, Sidewalky doesn't really like. Or like Fern doesn't really like Sticker, and Sticker doesn't really like Sidewalky. So like you see kind of the rotation that ends up getting made here with these fellas. Now I will admit I do think I know the winner, right? Because I have heard, alright, I'll be honest, I have heard that I believe the voting for BFDIE 10 and like the voting here for these episodes is the winner decider, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And as far as I'm aware from the past few episodes, the poll winner has been at least ever since the character's elimination, it has been Fern every time, because we ended up kind of having this mean character quadrant that made it, right, if you consider kind of like Needy not caring about the competition, maybe Mean, Toothpaste, Ruler, right, I think Ruler got out before, right, and Ruler was like mean, it was like the henchman, whatever, right, so, like, Sidewalk is generally mean. Sticker is... I like Sticker, and I think Sticker deserves to win. In my opinion, it's, like, it's the most winner vibes ever, and it would be cool, but, so I would personally have voted for Sticker as well. However, in general, it's the winner I predicted, but again, I predicted it because I think that it would be good, and not... no, I didn't predict it because it would be bad, but... I do believe that Fern probably wins as being like the nicest option of the fellas, and then of course vote for a nice character, because I mean you can't vote David, so you know, then it used to be David and then David stopped being an option, so I think it's currently Fern. So let's see, just to confirm, but I'm like 90% sure that Fern wins this finale, but we're going to need to see heading ourselves into this very finale, because it is now time to take a look at BFDIE 10, which is titled Escape Nightmare Island. But overall, BFDIE 9, good episode, enjoyed it. It was nice, it was fun, and overall, W. Alright, let's escape Nightmare Island. Okay, so that is BFDIE 10 Escape Nightmare Island. Now, a thing about this episode is that it is a very important episode for BFDI history, because at the end of the day, we have to talk about it in the way that it is in the BFDI history, which is that in the same way that episode 1 was super important because it was the first BFDI episode 1 in about 5 years, this is really important because it's also the first BFDI season end in about 5 years, right? BFDIA is close, but it hasn't had an ending yet, which means that this is the first proper ending of a BFDI season in a long time. However, at the same time, it's a BFDI type ending that's very different to how it usually goes, because you know, historically, BFDI endings go in the way that BFDI is currently going, right? You end up having that second to last episode be the vote to win, and then they eventually do a big old filler episode with a lot of suspense, and then, you know, the pre-finale, and then the post-finale, right, with the voting being like the main section of it. This is different than those finales, so it's hard, so you can't really compare it to those finales because it's supposedly a challenge. Now, pretty sure that the vote to win still is in fact prevalent, you know, in the sense of like the overall favor ends up being the one which they made win. You can even tell from mildly how that the episode plays out towards the end of it, that you could tell that, like, a lot of it is pre-made, and then they took the extra week, right, to presumably make the additional scene or two that they needed with the voice acting, because, you know, they needed those variants. They needed those variations. I don't think... it's a great question, because they could have either made it on the spot, or they could have made 3 variations, right? And then whoever won the poll, they would have put on to win, right? Which means that maybe there's an alternate, like, prepared sidewalky win scenario, right? Or sticker win scenario. But in general, I am not aware of them currently. I think they made it, because that would be why they took the extra week, surely. But yeah, overall, we end up having the fellas over in the Titanic loser change, which is still hilarious. It has not stopped being really funny. I like why the contestants have just decided to be equidistantly far from each other. Get close. Come on, yo. To do some exercise or something. But, they end up getting out, and then they end up voting for who they want to get the advantage here for the final challenge. Overall, at a 5-3 split, we end up having 5 votes for Fern, 3 votes for Sticker, and 1 vote for Sidewalky. And the contestants overall prefer Fern in the same way that the viewers overall preferred Fern. Yes, exactly. Now, let's talk about it, right? Of course, yes, the spoiler warning. Fern has won BFDIE. It's been a couple of days, so presumably it's not really that much of a spoiler, but you now know. So, there's an interesting, of course, situation to that. A lot of people, I don't think, were big fans, because Fern strikes it, and the show makes fun. The show knows, announcer literally said it, that Fern is the least notorious out of that final 5, right? Fern, already into the final 5, strikes off as the least technically anything, right? Like, they're a nice one that just kind of plays the game, you know? Like, they're not necessarily looking for too much confrontation. They're just playing the game, you know, trying to play fair majority of the time, you know, sometimes having a little bit of fun with it, but in general, you know, trying to play fair, trying to improve, trying to make friends along the way, right? Trying to help when possible, right? All of those things. And it's like, you know, Fern doesn't do much and doesn't try to make enemies, which overall, when you consider the negativeness of so much of this final set, right, with like money going from super nice, like exaggeratingly nice, to the point where they get themselves eliminated, to then coming back and being exaggeratingly evil to the point even Sidewalky hates you. It ends up that it's like, okay, bro, you're evil. Sidewalky's, of course, just kind of mean in general, because they're just trying to win, but of course they're trying to win with a heavy degree of they're trying to win with a heavy degree of competitiveness and kind of be rude about it, because they utilize their physicality. And then Sticker is trying to win by, you know, just kind of playing weird tactics, right? The Sticker plays this game the most tactical out of any, right? By cheating and doing all that stuff, seeing how much they can get away with, because they need to make up for the fact that they're not as physically capable as the others at all. They're the slowest runner, they're the lightest, they're the most floaty, they're just everything. They're all, you know, they can be stuck in place permanently for a very little amount of time, because it seems as if Sticker is not capable of controlling their body if their face is detached. You can see it kind of shake wildly. It's almost like the body gains its own. It's like, it's really interesting how the Sticker body actually works, because you see it flail around when it's not in control of anybody. It's almost like it's looking for a host. You know, like if there's a Honestly, like, there could be a world where, like, it'd be really interesting, right? Where, like, the arms sort of flail around because they need a host. So then, like, you could put in another sticker in that body, right? Different sticker. And then that sticker would possess the body, and then they would become the host in a way. I think that's a really interesting idea for how stickers might function. Of course, there aren't that many multiples of a character in the BFDI universe, but, like, it's intriguing to see it. But yeah, I think that in general, Fern definitely ends up sticking out as the one who sort of has been playing the game. And then, of course, it becomes, is Fern then, of course, a good winner? Is Fern a good winner? In my honest opinion, I think that Fern is a pretty alright winner. You know? I think that Fern is a pretty alright winner. They're the character that has overall I would say interacted with the widest majority of the cast, right, in a positive light. You know, they collaborated with Needy, they collaborated with Sticker, they collaborated with Sidewalky. You know, in early episodes they've collaborated with 2-Bit before by being enemies. You know, they've collaborated with all these people. I think, did they collaborate with Hot Dog? I think they collaborated with Hot Dog, right, in episode 1? So, like, in general, they've collaborated with a lot of people. And in general, I think that having this neutral character, I always say a character should represent the season. The winner should try to represent the season, right? Where, like, when you think of a character, it'll be kind of like unanimous with the series, right? And the way that, and what it stands for and what it is, right? I think it's just a nice thing, right? Having a winner represent the show. Does Fern represent BFDIE? I think that Sticker represent BFDIE better. However, I think that Fern still does do a decent job of representing BFDIE by just kind of being overall a nice thing, a nice one to have that's relatively fun, right? But, like, there's not that much to it. You see, that's true for both BFDIE and for Fern, right? Which means that you end up having this nice correlation between the two. And then I think that having a winner that's not super eventful is also a bit good, because it makes kind of an additional memorable character in a way, right? Because Fern becomes memorable now as the winner of BFDIE, right? As where, like, Sidewalky or especially Sticker, I would say, remain as relatively memorable characters in their own right. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really care that much for Sidewalky. I never really. I like Sidewalky in episode 9. That might be my favorite Sidewalky episode, and I do think that Sidewalky probably stands out as MVP of that episode. However, in general, Sidewalky is not that much to me. You know, like, they're different to Snowball, kinda. You know, but, like, in general, they do have they're like very similar to that mean guy toughness archetype that we have seen in BFDI before, right? Whereas Fern is a bit different and the Sticker is a bit different, so those felt like a bit breath of fresh air. Sidewalky does feel a little bit like that type of character we've seen before, right? Which is fine, I don't mind it, but I think as a winner, I don't think Sidewalky would have been great as a winner, even though they definitely had the possibility. But anyways, let's talk about what the episode entailed, which was the race through Nightmare Island. Each one will have we'll take a look at each of the landmarks, do a challenge based on that, and then you will have to make it to the finish line. Now, this is great. I love this, because one of the gigantic questions about BFDI, one of the biggest things that we miss, is that BFDI, Dream Island, right? A battle for Dream Island, we do not get to see. We have 0 shots of the inside of Dream Island in the proper way of it, right? From the characters inside Dream Island. Dude, he's just not a character. He's just not a thing, right? Which, in a way, it ends up being nice to have, like, I think it's cool to have this type of gigantic mystery, right? However, at the same time, it, of course, denies of a lot of possibilities, right? And we get to see kind of a little bit of how it actually is to have, taking advantage of some of those opportunities of actually having the island be in play, right? Having the island that you're in be in play, for... like BFDIE, which is, it is intriguing, and I do enjoy it quite a lot, especially as the landmarks are solid, the design is solid, and it's just nice to see like what could have been with Dream Island by sort of looking at it through the lens of Nightmare Island with like, the restaurants and stuff, when like, indoor aesthetics in BFDI, there aren't really that many, so casino aesthetic is kind of like, that's kind of rare. But yeah, they proceed to the challenge. First challenge, get to the top of the zero-star hotel. Fern dies about 17 ways in this episode. Fern gets bullied. It's like proper rinsed, but like everybody does. Sticker gets the least rinsed technically, but they do get like twice permanently stuck. Like if Fern wasn't playing nice, then Sticker would have just been out of rotation since the very beginning. Like it would have immediately been the end. And yeah, Sidewalk ends up getting through the sewer maze by just running through it. The third one is to survive the killer robots. Sidewalk is too strong for the killer robots. Every time the killer robots see Sidewalky, they end up just running away. We are having, Fern and Sticker make it down there. Then we end up having the challenge, which is to eat the food from the wheel. There's a lot of interesting foods where we end up having... Sidewalk, you need to eat 50 ghost peppers. Eating 50 ghost peppers at the same time, bad idea. You die. Yes, they die. This is expected. It's unfortunate because it's one of the few technically possible ones, right? Like, it's not good, but it would be possible with time. Although, of course, with the concept of recovery, you could argue that it's better to die and take the respin, but I don't think it is, because you have a 1 in 50 chance of getting it right. Right, like, on average, you're not really going to get too much. In the meantime, Fern ends up getting... Fern gets to skip it. The advantage was that Fern gets to skip the wheel challenge, which is a great one to skip. It's an excellent challenge to skip. I gotta admit, because of course it's the one challenge that can technically take you infinite time. But yeah, Sticker manages to harness in the last stroke of genius, and eventually end up taking the chicken tenders. In the meantime, Sidewalk gets mad, does vandalism, and now it's because no vandalism allowed. So making the hotel tilt over, not vandalism technically. So okay. Then Fern and Sticker tells them each other to jump. I mean, like, neither of y'all making this jump, mate. Nobody in this cast is making this jump. That is just not true. Sidewalky makes this jump. That is bullshit express. Bro is not doing that. That is not true. They're too heavy. Sticker jumping would of course have them levitate. That's a gad they've done a million times, right? They cannot get the distance for it. And Fern, I mean, maybe Fern's the one neutral party. So I guess, Fern really is sort of a neutral party. Fern is like interesting. What do we say that Fern is less physical than Sticker? Sticker is stronger than Fern, but Fern is better equipped physically than Sticker, because again, Sticker can be permanently disabled in 1 second. Right, whereas if Fern gets beat up, they'll still get back, right? Which is intriguing. So yeah, Sidewalking makes a jump when having water starting to fill up everything, and then at the last second with the two ones, one of them splashes Fern and they manage to somehow jump each other into the ending before them. Now, I mean, you can imagine that this is probably where they cut off the episode when making them, right? Because, I mean, look at how perfectly evened out this shot is, right? Like, it's either splashing on Fern, or splashing on Sticker, or splashing on neither, and then Sidewalk you wins. Like, you see how they left all three options on the table? I believe they made it this far, and then probably started to work on it after they got the confirmation that Fern was going to win. So, in general, Fern ends up winning. Absolutely huge. We end up even having everybody celebrate the win, and then they eat the grand cake, and they get to decide to send everybody out because they don't want anybody to get stuck in Nightmare Island, which is very nice. Now, problems. Toothpaste shuts the fucking door on Money. Fern gets super upset about this because they didn't like Money, you know? Like, Fern and Money did not exactly ever have a good rapport. Like, the one fella which Fern never helped. But, like, in general, they didn't necessarily want them to get stuck in Nightmare Island now. It's a bit evil much, you know? So Money successfully gets fucked over one last time, and ends up being stuck on Nightmare Island, where, well, you know, this was back in BFDI original. That's 10 years ago. There is, who the hell knows where Money is right now. Like, if we're still in Nightmare Island, it's over for you. This fella would have turned insane. Like, I don't know. I'd be worried. For you, bro. Like, it's GG. Like, like, it is GG for you, bro. Like, what the hell? But, yeah, overall, Money ends up getting screwed over, and then the arc successfully concedes. Yeah, Money ends up just being a bit too extreme, you know? Like, you can't, and it's a nice lesson, though. It's a nice lesson. You can't play up to everybody, because then they'll just take advantage of you, but you can't play down everybody, or else they'll turn their backs on you, right? I think it's a nice lesson. I actually do like this Money arc, quite a bit. I think I see one of the comments saying that Money's gonna be relevant in Teapot. That would feel a bit too convenient. I feel Teapot, I don't even know what's going on. I mean, like, bro, it's in Teapot, the entire Earth is dying. Right? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe Money, like, I don't need the door open someday, but like, I don't. It's gonna be for real. I don't think Money's appearing in Teapot. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I wouldn't mind, right? Because I do personally believe that the BFDI cast is well constructed, so I would like to see them again. But realistically, I don't think we're ever seeing them again. You know, maybe in another season, right? Maybe in like a post Teapot, but like an All Stars. But in general, I don't think we're ever seeing them in a proper season. But then we end up having the final vote count by 40,000. Fern ends up winning. It's significant. It is very, very, very significant. We end up having. I'm very surprised that David didn't win episode 1, because I heard that David won episode 1 voting, which was kind of what I was surprised about. Which made sense, but I'm surprised that they didn't actually. It was Fern and Beach Ball that apparently originally won episode 1 voting. But yeah, Fern constantly just top since the beginning. But I'm surprised. I'm surprised that Fern didn't become the favorite, because in episode 1, I mean, Beach Ball was pretty nice. Rose was kind of cool. Needy and David were also there. I guess they're lucky that David wasn't like a super revered character. You know, like they like, out of the original BFDI cast, David, not that many people care about David, so it was easy to get a new favorite. Because like, if it was a fan favorite there, yeah, no, that would have been rough. But yeah, Toothpaste only 8K despite being constantly an option is crazy. That despite sticking around for quite a while, Toothpaste 8K is low. But yeah, I mean, it's a deserved victory. The numbers have spoken, bro. the numbers have spoken. Of course, they stack, but even then, if you check the final episode voting, it was still, I think Sidewalkie got a bit more votes than Sticker in that final episode, out of people who didn't want either of those two to win. So, yeah, of course, Needy got a lot of votes. Yeah, Needy support definitely was on the up. You can tell they got more and more votes as time went on. They would not have taken over Fern. Like, it was close again, but they would not have taken over. So, yeah, Fern overall was winning. And then the announcer runs away with David eventually chasing them. Eventually, of course, to allow for David's return, to allow David's debut onto BFDI. That happens a couple episodes later in the story. Now, yeah, I do think that they could have maybe made that smarter, you know. Like, I'll be honest, I kind of don't like it that it's not incorporated into the show, that, like, David just kind of follows the announcer. Like, I really wish there was, like, a prize, you know? Like, man, that would have been great, wouldn't it? Like, imagine if instead of voting for the advantage for Fern, right? Imagine, okay? That instead you voted for, one of your fellow eliminated contestants to get a cool prize, and then somehow they all vote David, right? And then David's prize ends up being on the debut for BFDI, right? Like some sort of incorporation of the BFDI debut voting, rather than just kind of having David be there, go la-dee-da-dee-da, la-dee-da. You know, like, I feel like it could have been better incorporated. But that is BFDIE. BFDIE of the season. I think it was good. It was good. I think it was well done. It was definitely, controversial to start, but I think that, in general, the people who didn't like it have learned to, relatively ignore it. And, in general, I think that it makes for an enjoyable little experience. It's fun, you get to see some unique-ish challenges, twists on other challenges that are fun. You get to see a lot of visuals. We're taking advantage of the object nature itself, like constantly, which is one of my favorite things to do. If objects are acting like objects, I think that's fire. Like, it's not a problem, really, if they're not, but if they are, that's, like, a big bonus, right? So, like, in general, they take huge advantage of it. There's, like, there is story and beef and character arcs, but, like, they're BFDI level simple, right? Like, Money has a character arc, but you can get it. It's simple. You can describe it in a sentence. Same thing goes for Needy, right? Same thing goes for Toothpaste, I guess, right? Like, in general, there are character arcs. They're just easy to explain. They're easy to digest. BFDI is made to be easy to digest. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be simple. It's supposed to be what it is, and indeed it is. Right? And overall, I think that BFDI was a very nice thing to have on schedule. It was very fun. But now it's over. So, what now? Because the episode a week is not long. I mean, the entire series ended up over the course of 2 months, which, of course, it made it grow a fan base quite a bit quicker. But in general, I mean, like, it kind of complicates the matter a little bit, right? Because, like, what now? I mean, we're not making more BFDIEs. Like, that doesn't work. Can't just make BFDI forever. That'll just, because, like, the thing about BFDI is that it is an official BFDI season, so it actively counts towards the story, which it complicates the matter. Of course, so that you can't just spam it like you do with minis, right? So, in general, it's just gonna have to have kind of been, this is the one-off thing. We're probably not gonna see something like this for years, at least until BFDIE ends in a couple of months. But we need to see, like, if we'll post BFDIE ending, kind of in the summer, come with a new show. Because having only Teapot is kind of a channel death. Like, it's kind of a channel dying thing. Not necessarily, no, because, like, the Young Jellyfish channel never dies, but you can tell that, like, BFDIE allows people to get paid more. It allows more general people in the ecosystem for more time, right? And, like, in general, it helps out as BFDIE episodes, like, there have never been BFDI episodes as quickly as they are getting made right now, right? Because weekly. BFB episodes early are getting made, like, every 2 weeks, right? But, like, the fact that we're getting to see BFDI, universe episodes as quickly as we are right now, it's world class. And going back to what is like a episode every 3 to 4 months, upload every 3 to 4 months, I feel like Jack and Jellyfish wouldn't want to do that. But at the same time, I don't know. There's not the proper universe for BFDI. Like, you can't just ban BFDE. So what are we gonna do? I would personally, still honestly be a fan of a grandfather clock and metronome, not in the sense of just having grandfather clock and metronome be their own word, but like I do think that having a non-BFDI adjacent show on Jack and Jellyfish would be interesting. You know, having maybe BFDI styled, and like release over like 3 weeks maybe instead of 2, right? So that like it would be intriguing to kind of have a side series to Teapot, which sort of releases more frequently, so that way it could be bigger than BFDA currently is, but it wouldn't need to act as third wheel or act as second wheel, right? Which kind of would allow it. I think it would be interesting because again, it's just kind of like the Jack and Jellyfish. It would be nice if the Jack and Jellyfish channel could stay active. It's the entire thing. Like if there could be a show that could get made, that's fun. That doesn't conflict on BFDI. It could be interesting, right? I would say that it would be good. And, eventually it could construct an audience of its own, right? People are willing to try, like maybe it won't do as well, but people would be willing to give it a go, right? So, especially as they would release, more often. So, I think that I could see it, like in general, Orange Billions were sort of external from BFDI for a while, and people welcomed them in overall, alright? So, like, in general, I would say that, yeah, we'll need to see. We'll need to see, but I do hope that in the future there will be more BFDA styled shenanigans, more non-teapot things in the world. Because like, Teapot is so serious, man. Like, I like Teapot, but Teapot is so, like, serious. Like, show up to work with a suit and a tie, right? And discuss writing decisions, and discuss the storyline, and discuss the in-depth story arc. Which is like, sure, I like those things, but, like, I need me some time, I need me some time. I need me some, like, I need me some fun from time to time, right? And BFDA is not delivering fun; it's delivering serious content, right? So that means that I need me a little bit of fun from time to time. And BFDA is about to end. I don't know, dude. This will be all just a discussion point for summer after BFDA ends, though. For until then, it's of course all on the road to BFDA 25. For now, we're gonna go on the road to the next segment. What is it? Alright, next up we are going to watch a new series. Yes, because YouTube recommended has made sure that I know that this thing released and it's been on Roundup and it's been in a lot of places. HYPE, the series created by Agus Tats. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say his name. I'll say Agus. There's an ambulance outside. Which has only, I think, one video on the channel, which is indeed HYPE. No idea sure what the show is. I do not have any expectations heading into it. All I know is that it has been hyped, and indeed 29 minutes long. It's a bulky episode. We're gonna watch it. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna do all of that stuff. Bang. Okay, that is episode 1, and so far the only episode of HYPE, which we end up finding out stands for Hi, Your Prize is E3, I think roughly stands for, which is such a random combination of words, but to make an acronym, but yep, it is what it is. And yeah, this is an extremely promising little episode, and I see why everybody has been chatting about it, because, like, people have been saying, yo, could this be one of the big ones? Could this have that opportunity? Could this have the possibility, right? Because, we're always kind of looking out, right, to see, who can, maybe in modern times start to, maybe look towards, rising up as animatic battle continues to get to be very questionable in terms of release times. If there's going to be another show that's going to rise to like that level of prominence. Now, this show is very, very promising because like what it does is it has the one trait that majority of these modern super popular shows have. The trait that it has is that the cast is fun. Right? The cast is fun, the cast is funny, the cast is goofy, the cast is silly. You want to watch these characters because they get to goofy antics, right? They are very extreme levels of silly, absolutely, to the point where a lot of them are, honestly, straight up childish in the way that they act, and one of them is literally a child, right? Like two of them. So, like, in general, you end up that, like, you end up having this, like, super zoned down cast in the sense of, like, everybody in this cast is in the zone of being fun. Right, everybody here is supposed to be goofy and do goofy stuff, right? Which means that, like, in general, you end up having like a very wholesome little episode, a very fun little episode that leaves a lot of room for the imagination, right? Because, like, yeah, it just does. When you see characters like this, characters that really make you laugh, right? That really spark that connection. That was like, oh, it did a thing that I found was really cute. It did a thing that I found was really funny. It did a thing that I found was really fun, right? You gain that connection to the characters in the show because it just creates that closer bond when the character has made you emit a positive emotion, which creates just, stuff for like fan art, for like, following the show, for word of mouth, right? Which is how object shows grow, anything goes for animated battle. At the end of the day, majority of those characters are funny, right? Majority of those characters are funny. Orbit's cast is at the end of the day incredibly lighthearted in nature, right? Like, it's a lot of these shows, they end up having it. There's obvious exceptions to the rule, right? But like on average, majority of these bigger shows end up having a fun cast, right, as its primary point. Now, it's relatively intriguing. Who do we actually have as this cast? Well, we have ourselves a cast of about 12 characters plus the host, which is extremely manageable, which is nice. It is also partially the reason why but this episode 1 is so easy to digest, because sometimes it's hard to digest episode 1 of large cast shows because it has to spend so much time introducing them, but here, other than of course their extreme personalities causing them to be immediately memorable, they also end up having very there are not too many of them, so they get more average screen time, which makes them very much so more on screen, which is nice. I'm very satisfied because I'm gonna be honest. I will be fully for real. I don't know if large cast is the way. Like, shows have tried, and it is a genre, but like, is it the way? I don't know, like, it's of course you can do them, but like, I do think that shows like this, they're just succeed a bit easier, and this takes a massive advantage for it. Now, we've talked a bit about the writing of the character. Before actually getting to the avenues of the show, let's talk about some other stuff. Audio is great. Audio is done very well. Music is sprinkled in at the correct times. Voice acting is nice on the characters. Yet again, it accentuates a lot of that over-the-topness. with a lot of the characters, it's important the characters have emotions pretty consistently, which makes them nice to listen to. My favorite was probably the host. I really like how this host has managed to capture a humany robot voice that sort of ran around that time frame and like movies and stuff, and I think it's a very fun voice to listen to, so I do actually like that one a lot. I do like the griefer ball quite a bit, of course, with just how aggressive it is. I think it's a rather enjoyable voice, and in general, voice actors, they do good job. Good. In terms of animation, as a fun show, it does allow for itself for a little bit more willingness. It's relatively consistent, however, it does switch around, especially here nearing into our second half. I did notice the art style changing a little bit more. There was one that was honestly very reminiscing of that one Russian show that, you know, I should not know his name, There's also an art style change near the end that doesn't really look like anything. It's just kind of a bit different. In general, they are different styles. However, they stick to the same vibe. So, you know, in general, it's not like it's not a change. You know, like you'll notice if you're paying like too much attention, but on average, it won't necessarily cause for your viewing experience to be damaged, I would say. And then we have the show. So we start ourselves off with a chip on the floor, and it should all be worth the wait. So we know that these microchips towards the end, so the microchips end up being the challenge, right? The microchips is to fetch the challenge, and as our host says, we need them for harvesting, whatever it is, and we get a scene in the post-credit scene, the sort of dark post-credit scene, about what they could be doing. They seem to be harvesting it almost as if they're sort of inputting them, like, you know, like fetching the code from them into their own computer. Maybe it's like knowledge, something like that. I'm not 100% sure. However, yeah, noise in the background will be heard. But like, it could be maybe there to harvest knowledge, any of those things. I'm not sure so far. It could be for like nefarious intentions. We'll need to see, right? It's kind of one of those things like, are the challenges going to mostly be, you know, like if challenge 2 ends up being like mined for microchips, it's going to be like, okay, you might be wanting microchips, but for just this challenge, I think that it could be reasonable, and it could just, you know, be a way to gather more information, or gather more data, and it's all relatively useful. So far, I'm choosing to believe in innocence for now. Anyways, we end up having ourselves a newscasting about a UFO being caught on camera, possibly where the host was as well, and then we get ourselves a map. Yes, map. I know. Now, shout out to maps. I know. Look, not that many audio shows have a map. Maps are great. They because in one fell swoop, you have got yourself an industrial quantity of data, you know, by just having this map, right? Like, look, maybe we're not going to go to these places, but you now officially can. You know, you can now go to these places. You can now do this. You know, and it is useful. It is good. Now, as far as I believe, we are in Serena Golden Ground, as the sign says. I think specifically in Serena Golden Ground Park, which is where we are. It is also, I think, where the UFO was not originally caught, which is interesting, as it has been caught in various other places. I think the existence of an energy station there also remains as an extremely interesting possibility, as one of the few unique places. Also really large. It's the size of a city. That is one hell of a station. And see all of the consoles. What are those consoles? Can I name the consoles? We have got ourselves, there's a Switch, there's a GameCube, there's a Wii, there's a, that is a PS5, then that's probably an Xbox One, then that would be Red. Huh, is that like a... Not like an Atari? I don't know what that is. But either way, we end up having ourselves them, and eventually our first fella, this Hammer guy, what is their name? Okay, I'm bad with names. All right, the Hammer fella ends up not wanting the remote because they want to watch something entertaining rather than the news. Shrimpy just wants to be informed. Half the time, the news lies anyways. True as hell, though. Bars. And eventually we end up asking for the average chart, right? The chart for camps. You know those chart for camps that says the performance. God damn it! You see, I really don't know these names. I'm not catching these names. I'm sorry. They are a camp host. That is their personality. They're like sort of Discord mod personality combined a bit with camp host, so that makes it a very one-minded, one-track, kind of overly aggressive to anybody dismissive of what they're doing, who just likes to sit there and host a camp and only think about that to imagine. Type of character. We end up getting there by Keycard, which is child. They are a kid. They have their little iPad. They have an OC that's like a band character. And indeed, they are big fans of everything that the kids like. You know, they what are they like even listing, bro? They listed like a lot of things. Hold on. They listed Huggy Wuggy, Seek, Scary Blue, Jumbo Josh, Ban, Nab, Snow Celine. Hold on. I'm Banbalina, Stinger Flynn. So that is, you know, the excellent cast here of characters that Orange Keycard likes. I did forget to turn on the subtitles. I think the subtitles were for like half the video, right? The subtitles they are not completed yet. Are they completed? They stopped working for me, at least like halfway through the challenge. I don't know. And I turned it on to auto subtitles because, you know, I still wanted a subtitling experience. Thankfully the subtitles were in English Canada, so that means that you can still do English US subtitles. But they end up, of course, beefing with Average Cheat, and they're doing that Mr. Tickle's Demon Mode. And they're talking to our new fella, Balsamic Vinegar, Joy character. This is everything is good in the world, the character, you know? Everything has to be good. Everybody has to be good. They will try to make the world better. That is their mission. This is the other character, which I said is probably also like 9 years old. I'm gonna be for real. they're like probably like 9 while the fella's like 6. You know, they're around there. Then we have the Griefer Ball, who is griefing. We already talked about that. Yeah, Griefer Ball. Just, you know, they're the perfect counterpart to Balsamic Vinegar. Instead of Balsamic Vinegar, they're super weak. They're super strong, and with their power, they're going and destroy everybody, and destroy the world, and get angry easily, and everything has to go their way. You know, and we get them a lot of that screen time in this episode. Then we end up having ourselves this, the next character. You're writing a poem. Yep, indeed. You end up having, what are you, bro? I keep forgetting your name. I don't know your name. You're like a bottle. Are you a milk? What are you? No, I think you're like an insulated bottle or something. But, you end up being a bit of a writer. You are kinda like you're kinda like overly online guy that constantly wants to be cool. You know, wants to be seductive, wants to be flirty, wants to do that. So it's writing poems, you know, that way they can do that while remaining on the grind on the internet and whatever, right? So they write a poem. Their design's a bit different, as their eyes end up being more I don't know what it's called. They have pupils, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, what is this? I've got a heart made of soy. Oh, you call soy milk, right? I've got a heart made of soy and an exterior of glass. The world's not been kind to this boy. People can be so crass. It always hurts when a nice guy ends up finishing last. Boom! Get that into the Hall of Fame? The Hall of Fame of what? Nobody knows. But yeah, destroying it. Then in the meantime, we have like having cartridge of Vsauce video game. I don't know what they're a cartridge of, but yes, they're like the Vsauce, the Thai character. You know, they're like smart. Right, they're like smarty, and you know everybody calls them a nerd. They don't really mind, but like they'll be there. They're the most technically logical in the cast, of course. Then there is smiling emoji, talks in TikTok voice, talks in TikTok text to speech. Has a very random personality. There is not much to say. You are like a mystery. You're like put you in a zoo enclosure to witness you know, tier. Like it is intriguing. I do not know, because like they're kind of switch up. They're a yapper and they don't like people talking, and then they're gonna force things to be their way, and then they're gonna talk about it. They're like kind of arrogant. It's hard to describe. There's Party Hat. They like fun. However, they're very much so the most manipulatable character, in the sense where you can just do anything to them, you know, like they're directly not capable of responding due to the lack of arms, meaning that if you can just trigger them to explode, you can just grab them, bring them, whatever. They cannot do anything against you. You know, like you just gotta kind of be the way that it is. It's a bit complicated. They end up talking to a movie star who, yeah, you can tell what that is. You can tell it's generic and entitled movie star persona, you know. I'm saying generic. It's look, all right, here's the deal. Generic is a weird word where, like, yes, it has a negative connotation. Like, would I tell you that this is a generic movie star egotistical type character archetype? Yes. 1 million, but come on. Come on, there's not that much nuance here. But like at the same time, it's not bad, right? It's like this weird thing. It's not actually bad to see this archetype. Just because this is an archetype that we know exists, right, and that has appeared in other media, doesn't mean that it can't appear in an Object Show and be fun, right? You know? Like, at the end of the day, you gotta remember, right? Even though, of course, I'm saying that this show is fun and stuff, as with every show that's fun, as with every show, these first episodes, they're mood setters, right? Like, we're seeing all of the characters in factory settings in this episode, right? Which means that, like, yeah, if they're gonna mostly conform to an archetype, that makes perfect sense, right? Like, they are on the road they're on the road to developing a more proper personality, because they need time on the screen to be able to do that, right? Otherwise they're not gonna do that. You know, so like in general, even though we're witnessing these characters in factory settings and we need to kind of wait for them to flesh out before they can properly say that, so on, fine, it is. If movie stars out here, you know, it's kind of like, it's one of those things. Movie star in episode 1 like this is fine. What is that? That's a movie. There's a movie about movie star. I want to be on that. There's like a movie playing in the other room. It's so like, can they turn it down? All right. But yeah, what was it? I got totally the shot. But yeah, I'm saying movie star in this episode is fine. But like, I mean, if we're on episode 10 and movie star's still here and acting the same, then we've got a problem. You know, like development needs to happen. But fantasy settings are more than okay for it to be a, you know, more generic in style. Then we end up having Shrimpy, which is apparently the villain of the rival of Movie Star, because apparently they went viral one time on TV after getting splashed with pink paint. Then we have Disco Ball. This is the non-speaking character. They speak in music, and they do kind of interesting hand gestures to be able to communicate. And it's the type of character which is just kind of very enjoyable to have around here. Like, it's a logical choice. It conforms very well to this cast. It's kind of fun character that has to do extreme actions. In general, they create funny scenarios because of course they can only respond with disco music to any specific situation. So in general, it's just kind of fun, and they're also very 3D, which is interesting. And there we go. That is our cast of 12, and they are joined by the host. So this host, which I will be 1,000,000%. Okay, well actually, hold on. 2 steps back. Everybody ends up turning into a chaos because of Griefer Ball, right? Griefer Ball wants to destroy everything. So they're all chasing Griefer Ball until eventually they crash down right in front of the TV, and we got the news that E3 is cancelled. Oh no! You can tell that this was written 2 years ago. You can tell. Yes, I could tell that. Yup, got it. Oh, we're talking about E3 cancellation in the Big 26. Nah. But yeah, everybody got super sad about it, and this apparently triggers an immense despair for them, which causes our host to appear. Now, I'll be honest, because of the E3 theming, I totally believed that this was a DS for a little bit. No, this is presumably based on those IBM computers, because those IBM computers, they're the ones with the red. They're the ones with like that red nub in the middle of the keyboard. They have like that sticker, right? They have they in general have a tougher shell. I think they made an IBM like tough book or whatever it's called, and they have like that red lip at the bottom. So I do believe that is based on probably an IBM ThinkPad, which is rather fun. It is not how an IBM ThinkPad quite looks like though. It's like an IBM ThinkPad blended in with a DS and like a weird transformation. Is that a GBA port at the bottom? What is that? What is that port at the bottom, bro? But anyways, your official name is Windows for Workgroups. What? Your Windows for Workgroups? I mean, like, okay, that is an operating system. Yeah, when did Windows for Workgroups? And they made multiple Windows for Workgroups. That's kind of the weird part about it, right? Didn't they do that? Yeah, they made like a Windows for Workgroups, like they made various of them from like 2.0 to 3.0, but the main one's like 3.1 because there was like Windows 3.1 Windows for Workgroups, right? It was like an official name. So that's what it was called. I think it's interesting to be called after an operating system, because like usually you'd be called after your piece of hardware, but I guess maybe you can always install later. Like maybe if you install Windows XP on that, it'll be called "Hello, my name is XP," right? Yeah, that's fair. Also, Windows for Workgroups. If we're really talking about 3.0, Windows for Workgroups is old as hell. We're out here talking about E3 like you know what that is. Talk about E3 like you weren't before the days where they invented UI. What are you doing? Where they invented mouse. But alright. Anyways, what are we talking? Alright, so they end up offering a competition show where you can win an E3. What does that mean? Nobody really knows. We end up having, a couple of speculations. The answer to, are we asking to bring it back, is, well, it's not an answer, which implies that it's probably not. Probably not bringing it back. You might just get like the E3 logo. You get ownership rights to E3. I don't mind. I like the idea, right? Like when the prize is a mysterious entity or a show or something, I do personally like it when the prize is more it's never happened, but I really like it if the prize is to get rights to it. Like one of my favorite my favorite theory for what a BFDI was back in BFB was, and I really would have loved this happen, was if it gave you rights to the next BFDI season, which means that the winner of BFB would have hosted BFDI, right? Like the next season, because they would have gotten the rights to it. Same thing would apply here. If the winner of E3 gets to own the ownership rights of E3, so then they get to continue E3 in their universe in their own way, that would be cool. That would be nice. You know, why am I talking like Windows for workers right about now? I don't know. We gotta keep it moving. They end up teaming up into the two teams after having a little bit of debate. We end up having the first team being called Team Mines to take the master out of Mines. This is I will admit that this is a thing which Object Show done before, naming their teams, you know, like take the all out of Alliance, the all out of Alliance, and then you get Alliance, but yeah, the Mines. This is Disco Ball, Ginger, whatever you call it, no, Vinegar, sorry, Cartridge, Average Chart, Shrimpy, and Griefer Moon. I mean, yeah, this is a team entirely dependent on Griefer Moon, right? Like, these characters do not have the physical capability or mental capability or connection to Griefer Moon enough to be able to outweigh their mind, which means that Griefer Moon can just kind of do what they want. It's probably a better idea for the team to intentionally split off, right? Like, have two characters conform to whatever the hell Griefer Moon wants, right? So that way they can be like, okay, we'll do this, and then have three characters sort of go off in a channel like this, right? That way, three characters can sort of submit the main plan for the team, and then have two characters just follow Griefer Moon's plan, because it has to happen in some way, right? And you have to feel included in the team, so somebody has to follow it, right? So if they can correctly manage Griefer Moon, sure, they'll win, but they need to correctly manage Griefer Moon. Then we end up having the other team that ends up being called Banban's Kindergartens, after a gigantic after like an enormous level acronym, because actually BANS Kindergarten. This is the Hammer, which I still don't know the name of, Party Hat, Party Creeper, Orange Keycard, Movie Star, Soy Milk, and the Smiling Face emoji. This is about a good logos. This team is more generally rounded, you know, like they don't need to conform all to one person. However, there is a bucket load of disagreement. Movie Star and Smiling Face and this Hammer are not going to agree on anything ever. It's just not happening. The other three will choose sides depending on the episode, right? Like they don't mind being followers, but there are three kind of leading type figures that will not conform to each other, which means that it's not gonna go great for this team, to be honest. It's just gonna be disorganized, you know. Like whereas the other team, they can all organize around Griefer Ball, right? If this team, they can't really organize, you know, because like they would have three different organization tactics, and then this just doesn't work. So this team is just gonna struggle in general until like one of them's gone. Like if any one of the three leaves, I think that this team can sort itself out, because, you know, then a majority rule kind of plays out, like who ends up following more, the leader, right? But like with three of them, they can be split three ways, and then it just doesn't work. But anyway, we end up having a challenge is to fetch the work chips, and then they proceed to do that with various tactics. Like, dude, this is so... I'm sorry. This scene with the remote, like, I'm telling you, does this not look like the Russian show? I'm telling you it does. No, am I making this up? I swear, bro. It's similar. I'm sorry. But, anyways, we end up having... them fellas get the chips. In general, it ends up that it doesn't matter too much what actually happens in the challenge, because it turns out that we end up having the Griefer Ball hijack every single chip, lock everybody in, and turn on a bomb. So everybody's about to die, basically. Then we need to stop him. How do we stop him? The only way to stop him is by doing the dance. Yes, of course. Why did I forget? If you do caramel dancing, then that means that you will emit power. And that will stop the grief. But why didn't I think of that? Yes, of course. It's so goofy. It is so goofy. And eventually, it turns out it doesn't even work because the fuse gets lit up anyways. Everybody dies, except for the basically the only person that does it is the average chart, who gets flung instead. So as we're chatting to the first team, it seems as if average chart takes a fucking sprint down to the area and fetches all of them, because they come back tired as all hell. That is a generational sprint. You know what? For a Discord moderator, that is the most amount of exercise you've ever made. And then you end up winning. Good job. Microchip, dude, I really like it. I just randomly turn on the audio to hear Windows for Grief's voice. It's very good. I like it a lot. That's a solid 9.5 out of 10 voice right there. And then this means that the Bam team, yes, the Bam team, ends up getting up for elimination. So that is Big Yeetus. Finally found out the name. Totally took to the voting screen. Movie Star, Orange Key Card, the Party Mob, Smiling Emoji, and Vasoy end up being the ones up for elimination. Who are there now? Not really sure. Movie Star feels like a valuable option, because they're kind of, that type of full of yourself character that I don't think an average viewer will really like. So we're gonna say that. Alright, we're gonna say that, but we're gonna, of course, need to see. Every single show forms a mildly different voting community based on the people that end up finding, and the people that end up watching, and the people that end up voting it. So, which, end up being mildly different people depending on the style of the show. So we'll need to see what the voters of this show will prefer compared to the others. And after, our credits and post-credit scene, where, by the way, in the credits, I swear that these are just different designs. Yeah, no, these designs, every single one I think is different. Okay, not every single one, but a wide majority of them are just different designs. Okay, cool. But anyways, we end up having the final question. What do we think the E3 is? We don't really know. Again, I hope it's ownership rights, but, we'll see. We'll see what the E3 ends up being. But, if it's like BFB, or just be a freaking video archive of E3, so like, bro. And then that is hype number one. It is an extremely promising little show. Now, unfortunately, like with nearly all of them, I unfortunately do have to give, the relatively obvious but unfortunate pointer of I don't trust it. I'll be honest. I think it has a lot of potential, and it could be one of the big ones. However, one of the prerequisites for making it into the big leagues is it has to remain in the public eye. If you only have one episode release, you will not do that. You will need you need multiple episodes to release within the span of, 6 months. You can release 2 episodes in 6 months or 3 episodes in 6 months. That's roughly the range which you want. 2 episodes in 6 months probably is fine. Depends on the show that you are, right? Just kind of that range where it's like you need to keep that show in the public eye, and for that it needs to get episodes. It just has to, right? Otherwise, it's not going to grow, because people are going to stop talking about it, because, it's not going to be a thing that people think about. It's going to be like, oh, yeah, that was a cool episode. That was a cool pilot, and then proceeds to not think about it again. So, in general, it's one of the things that needs to happen. And, I mean, I want to trust it, but, why would I? You've just told me that this was in production for 2 years. If it's a 2-year per episode production cycle, we're cooked. Of course, episode 1 is usually significantly longer. Yes. Usually, episode 1s take a lot longer, because you need to form around everything of the style, of the backgrounds, of the casting. Yes. True. I get it. But also, if you take all that out, you probably half the production times. What do you got? 1 year instead of 2? we'll need to see. Right, like we'll need to see. I want to believe that this show can get episodes. You know, I really do, because it's really good. You know, I want to believe, but like, this is the Object Show community. We have been trained time and time again that we shouldn't do that. You know, we've just been trained that we should not trust. So I am by default not believing, but hopefully this show can prove me wrong and give me episodes in earlier than 2027. Please. Alright. That is hype. I'm pretty hyped. Let's hope the hype remains and the hype doesn't die down with time. Next thing. Okay, next up we shall be talking about Silly Object Battle or SOB. This is something which I have been asked to take a look at because, yeah, you know, I've been asked to take a look at it because I have this is one of the sister shows to that duo of Concept and Web, which we took a look at a while back. I will try my best to cover it. It is rather late because it ended up that the Sunday, you know, I had some fun. So yeah, overall we're gonna take a look at it, starting with SOB number 1, The Grand Walk. Go. Okay, that is episode 1 of SOB, Silly Object Battle. Interesting little thing, I will admit. You'd think from, of course, that intro and everything that this would be one of those, you know, one of those, those object fools, but it turns out that not really. It manages to carry itself out with a different vibe. First of all, the characters all feel, because of the animation style, extremely small, because the way that their assets are drawn. None of these characters are more than 3 inches tall, you know, like, there's no way. Which does that, but the main thing that this show manages to, of course, utilize to its advantage is the utilization of awkward humor, right? Which is a type of humor that's a little bit difficult to pinpoint, but basically, when a character is talking awkwardly and gets cut off and is talking like quietly, unsurely, shy, there's a humor in that. Right? There's a humor in that, like when a character goes like, "Hello, I am the character." Yeah, you know, like there's kind of like there's like a humor to that type of thing. It's really hard to specify. I can't make an example, right? Because like I'm not awkward. Technically, I'm not look, no, I'm very awkward, but I'm not awkward in the way that these characters are awkward. You know, these characters are awkward because they don't know how to talk a lot. But that is the exact opposite of what I talk way too much. Hello, but yeah, the first characters, the challenge is to walk over to them. 5 characters end up doing that. The core reactor ends up being, you see, like, it's kind of like, you know, that shyness is funny sometimes. You know, of a character being like, challenge to walk to me. I can't walk. You know, like, there's kind of, like, I don't know. It's so hard to describe. Humor is difficult, man. Humor is a difficult concept. But, yeah, it's fun. Anyways, we end up having, the pencils as well as some other fellas, right? Like yeah, wait, how many characters? Wait a minute. 5 characters are safe and 5 characters are for limit, but only 4 characters are for limit. What? Huh? It's not even correct. Whatever. Anyways, I'm expecting the core reactor to be safe because there's pity. Who's getting out? Probably somebody who doesn't do much. Maybe incognito. We'll see. Episode 2, The Worst Day of Text Tool's Life. Go. Okay, that is episode 2 of SOB, and here it is. Now this show is starting to harness in a little bit of its inner object fool. It's louder. It does the classic animation thing with rearranging limbs from time to time and just generally switching up animation style constantly for the sake of the funny. And in the general, it just does that. So yeah, when having the eliminated character be Limmy, I guess they weren't up for voting, and then they were, and then they weren't, and then they got a wheeled, and then the challenge is the first 5 people get through will be safe, and then the other 4 will be up for elimination. Other 4 people were safe, and then the other 4 were up for elimination because we forgot a character. So now we need to add a character. Is this intentional? Because if not, then I am worried. How are we not able to organize this? There is no way. We cannot be this cooked. Like, what? But anyways, we end up having Jenna, this is like a intentional tier level failure. I don't trust that this is actually true. But yeah, Text 2 ends up getting absolutely cooked. Everybody climbs on them. Eraser Capper ends up being Faith, the evil guy, which ends up getting passed. Then also the microphone, which ends up using the lamp instead, and then the paint fella. So that means that Core Reactor, who can't move, Text 2, who failed, Lampy, who wasn't there for some reason, Incarnado, who never tried, Pencil 1 and 2, which are apparently the same character. You see, this is where I was not understanding, because they were not ever listed technically as the same character, but now they are confirmed to be the same character. So yeah, I would probably eliminate them because this show can't already deal with numbers, and we're giving them a character that's 2 characters. That is over. But yeah, by the way, shout out to the subtitles. I'm low-key surprised that they're there. But we end up having, for some reason, the microphone gets 7 times worse heading into this post-credit scene. Not exactly sure what happened there. It's this show, so realistically I expect it to be intentional for the sake of the joke, right? I can't really find the joke, which is the reason I'm pointing it out, right? Because there's many times where we sort of play around with the microphone, like I think when the microphone climbed the tower, right, it made kind of microphone hitting sounds, kind of like that. But like in general, it doesn't seem like they're doing too much. Will the next challenge be core reactor friendly? Probably not. But yeah, I do like the addition of side shots of Fitbit, though, which are cool at the host. And then eventually we end up having Limmy be placed onto the elimination area, which is like a glass box. So it's yep. Glass gamers. All right. It is now time to head ourselves into the next episode, episode 3, which is titled The Green is Mean. Go! Alright, that is SOB number 3. Now, in this episode, we are starting to sort ourselves out in terms of personality. You can really tell. The first episode kind of set the vibe. The second episode, it was kind of nothing. And then the third episode, is setting the vibe. You can really feel Fitbit in this one, or you could read the other two. You can really feel Fitbit in this one. They're very silly. They're very silly. That's like the word to describe them. They silly. And you can tell as the characters proceed to be the personality. You can tell Pencil 1 and 2. You end up having apparently the pencil with the tip is calm, and then pencil with the eraser is super rash and evil, right? So that's an interesting thing. It's not a character doing much. Incarnado seems to be kind of closed off. That makes sense. Text tool doesn't really talk much, to be honest. Then we end up having Eraser Cap being a little bit of the medium one in general. Core Reactor, there's not much Core Reaction can do. Core Reactor is a spectator to the world. And then we end up having Microphone, which is kind of the most locked into the competition. So far, if I were to give a winner prediction out of the SOB 3, I would say Microphone. Microphone gives me the most winner vibes. Out of the people here, because they're kind of just a competitor. They've got a cool trait about them, but in general they have friends. They're cool. They're relatively they've got this kind of chill voice to them, so they're likable. but like they're not, they're not chaotic, so they should be able to get past a lot. So I personally believe in microphone to do well. I think that microphone would do well. They end up grabbing a piece of right to Fitbit. They end up Eraser Cap ends up asking for them. I mean, okay, look, I get it that they couldn't really speak. However, all right, however, right, they could have just guided him to the patch of grass, they could have just, like, because they were gonna get there first anyway, so, but anyway, so we proceed to have the 4 people get up for elimination: the evil fella, the trash can, the pencils, and the eraser. One of the issues that this show is definitively having, though, is for some reason it is allergic to having every character show up. Not sure why. It passed time, really, it's 30 minutes. Like, you can give 5 extra seconds to Trash Can, Like, the fact that Trash Can literally does not show up in this episode. Like, they don't show up in the sense where they do not have a singular 0. They have 0 seconds of screen time, mate. Nothing. Like, it's like, come on, 0. Like, I understand that this is still, very much so playing off of an object fool, right? As this is doing that, you don't need to, right? But, like, it's not many characters, and, like, the way that this show's vibe goes, again, like, it's not a 1.5-minute episode, it's 3-minute episode. I feel like we can afford it, But yeah, who's getting out? I don't know. It's a vote to eliminate this time. Let's say that the Eraser Cap gets out. I have no idea, bro. Episode 4 is titled 1 and 2 Come in Hand. Go. Okay, that is SOB 4, and this, I think, is the episode. Now, what does that mean? I know that I just said the weirdest sentence of all time. I think that this might be the transitioner episode. It kind of feels like it, because this is the episode that, like, really feels like it's that in-between point between, unserious show and show that wants to try, right? Because what does it have to do? When a show wants to try, it has to take its setting and it has to expand upon its borders, right? Expand upon its wings. So how does it do that? It has to develop the characters. It takes an additional minute to do that. Check. It develops Paint Bucket a bit. It develops Pencil 1 and 2 quite a bit. Core Reactor, the text tool. It settles in that. It has to settle in its own unique style rather than shitpost style. Check. It does is doing its proper humor. Yet again, the personalities are starting to lock themselves into place. We're also sorting out its sort of humor, its sort of kind of timing-based humor that, I will be honest, I personally have enjoyed quite a lot. I am a fan of this type of humor. It is humor that is for me, which means that I do find the jokes of this episode rather funny. It is doing that while also, it has to sort itself out. An environment, that grass, it's growing, right? Surely, what is going to happen? It feels like the idea is for it to grow into what eventually becomes the environment, and then we have an environment to work with, and then we have a show, right? To properly function in there, like you can tell. I feel like this show is expanding to go towards that sector. We'll see if it's true. I do know that the episodes get longer, and that is one of the reasons why I'm of course forming this theory. But it does make sense. We're learning a bit more details about this world, kind of like how they're the puddles. So like there is an underground, right? Which you might think, yeah, duh, but at the same time, that's not a duh. I've seen various other shows that have this ground be impenetrable. I've seen a show say that the ground is made out of quartz. Right, I've heard saying one of these shows that's set in a white void. that the grind made out of quartz. It's called like it was BOTB that did that. So like for example, sometimes it's not detail that's necessarily always there. Okay, so you have that in mind. But then we're learning about that. Then we're learning that you can equip somebody in a way, like the Fitbit actually went on the arm, which is very interesting. I've never seen that before, right? Like there's all of this stuff is intriguing, and it feels like it's developing itself into getting itself its own lore and its own rules, right? I feel like this episode is starting to expand and establish. So we'll see if that's true. As a quick screener for what happens in this episode, the eliminated characters end up being Eraser Cap, or of course be mean. Then we end up having the challenge, which ends up being to grab some water. We end up grabbing some water. The first people are Pencil 1 and 2, which end up was waiting for a cloud and believing hard enough that it rains, so that it does. So they're safe. Then eventually Lamp and Microphone end up dying because they touch water. Are they dumb? Yes. Then we end up having Paint Bucket, which is not able to give it their own water. Text Tool uses the actual text tool to spawn in a U and used it as a cup, which is great. You can't be safe for Core Reactor ever. Thankfully, Paint Bucket somehow trips. They trip on what? I don't fucking know. You think I know? It's probably physically impossible to trip in that position. But, like, it's Paint Bucket. Paint Bucket is a failure. And then it somehow ends on the Core Reactor, and you end up being safe. So then we end up having Evo, Trican, Lamp, and Mike being out for elimination. It's a vote to eliminate, so I'm gonna say that Evo gets out because, of course, they tried to steal Trash Can's water, and you want to feel bad for Trash Can because they got totally scammed twice. So, we'll hope for the best. Let's see if that's true, because it's now time to jump ourselves into the next episode, which is none other than episode 5, which is titled 46, more like Qwerty Fix. What the fuck? Okay, go. Okay, that is episode 5 of SOB. So, yeah, that is an episode. Yeah, so you know what I said that last time? No, nope, not that. No. Oh my god. You know what I said last episode? I nearly tripped. You know what I said about like, yo, it's gonna become big and stuff. Nah, not really. Nope. But I mean, it's got a chance still, but I don't think it's doing that. I think it could have done that. It set itself up in the right way to where like it could do that, especially taking advantage of this episode with a debut, right? Because like it would have made sense. Like, you gotta think about it. The grass growing, environment forming, characters getting developed, vibe getting set, and then there's about to be the object fully in debut with potentially, multiple characters joining, doubling our cast and allowing ourselves to continue the show anew, right? Like, it would be a way to do it. It will be a way to do. I think can you see the line of reasoning? Does it make sense? I think it does, right? But anyways, we end up having ourselves the elimination being hosted by a text tool, which thankfully for Fitbit, text tool just so happens to be the closest match in terms of silliness. They're like a mildly different type of silly because they're not confident in it, but they still are. They still are. We proceed to end up having the eliminated character be evil BunnyBoi8810 or whatever, which ends up not being capable of getting eliminated because Text 2 is not strong. The end is going like, yo, just don't move, please. I don't know. I feel like surely there's some text that you can use. Surely there's you can spawn in the letter. Sure, you can spawn in the letter Q and use it like a cannon or something. I don't know, like a catapult, right? And then rotate it. Like it could work, but Anyway, we end up having the new challenge be to do nothing, because of course the challenge was to murder the sad boy, and then the evil fella did that. So then we end up having ourselves the debut, which ends up having like 46 characters up for debut. It's a lot of them. It's a lot of characters. It's a pretty all-star lineup of recommenders. I will admit there's a lot of recommenders that we have encountered in the catch-up journey. There's Random, there's Quandog, of course there is Pigpilled, of course, there is Finidamos, that's Web, of course, right? Those shows are directly coordinated. There's MatSnap, UBS team. There is because I'm letting it play, so I'm kind of like waiting for the name to literally appear on the screen while it's like playing in my computer, recommended by Hi. Okay. Then we have Mr. Pizza. That's true, Mr. Pizza. That's from MCS. That's who they are. Then there was, I think, maybe somebody else as well that I missed. But either way, who's gonna win? I don't really know. It just depends on the pulling power. You know, usually this show doesn't seem to get that many votes. Right? It got like 18, which means that it's not enough to where you can weigh it based on just that. You're gonna need to weight it on, you know, which one of the recommenders will have the most voting power to give off their own voting vibes. Now, based on entirely the detail that Love Potion is in the thumbnail for episode 7, I am gonna presume that Love Potion makes it. Personally, who would I want to make it? Man, it's probably Do Not Disturb. Do Not Disturb is a great character, right? They're a character in that one show by Zorogang, but like, and that was like an excellent character, so I just have to say yes to that again. That's probably who I would have chosen. But there's a lot of interesting looking fellas in the cast, you know, that could possibly be chosen from. Just a 2x2. I like the 2x2. I like yes. I've never seen a 2x2 character. I've seen a lot of Rubik's Cube, but 2x2? Nope, not seen that. So yeah, overall, that is that. Episode 6 is titled Carbohydrates. Go! Okay, that is the 6th episode of SOB. Now, I think a long time passed between SOB 5 and SOB 6 because it's a 1-year anniversary, and apparently the show was daily, so I'm getting a bit confused here. A year has more than 6 days. Now, we will find out, I guess, maybe, I don't know. But we end up having a text tool end up hosting, of course, as it goes, the debut. In the meantime, that they end up hosting it. Text tool is fine. They did become a little bit more arrogant, actually no, significantly, ever since they started hosting. It is a thing that just kind of tends to happen. You'll notice that like it is a thing that tends to happen with people. But overall, we host the debut. I do like the detail of the glass box being in space, which means that they can just literally spectate from above. It's kind of fun, and it's not, and you'll be surprised, but I don't think it's anything that we have actually seen in another show. Like, I can't remember one, you know. Like, so I don't think we've seen this like Sky Wars type thing before. But yeah, we end up having the debut for the rejoiner with 17 votes. Is indeed Love Potion. Look, okay, here's the thing. It's just a part of life, you know. It's just a part of life. Sometimes the thumbnail shows the character in the show. What am I supposed to do about it? You know what? You know, you can tell. So yeah, Love Potion ends up joining. They end up immediately getting along with Pain Bucket because Pain Bucket wanted another girl on the show, and indeed, here it is. We end up having a team division being officially made as they get split in half. We end up having some team names. Core Reactor ends up being called the Trashy Core Lovers. For once, a team name. I know, right? For once, it's a team name that combines the names and isn't bad. It might be the first not bad team name in the history of gaming, in the history of object shows. It's unbelievable. I never thought I'd see the day. I never thought I'd see the day. Core Reactor, you never fail to not let me down. Then we end up having the Alliance. Of course, they're doing the joke with the Ions because of Pencil. But then they end up being called Let's Be anyways. And the challenge ends up being to find rice. Apparently, there is rice around. So we end up having that. Now, how do we end up doing that? Well, but we end up, the team of Max and friends ends up using a rice tracker that Pencil 1 made because they're a genius, apparently. However, this rice tracker is not very good at tracking rice because, like, how do you do that? So it ends up being quite slow. We end up smashing into it like microphone does, and it ends up being fine. It works, I guess. But it's tracking the rice, and they don't really know why. But the rice that's being tracked is moving, like it's an actively moving target. So we're getting a bit confused. But it turns out it's actually because they have it. Yes, because of course, a Love Potion and the Pain Bucket, the Core Reactor can't move, end up taking the ultra epic tactic of just walking and hoping for the best. But thankfully, there's a gigantic sign saying "Rice over here." So then, okay, fair enough. I guess the rice is over there. So they proceed to ask Love Potion, which ends up asking, which ends up saying nothing to Lamp, and then Lamp goes to go, oh, yeah, sounds good, yes. So, yeah, fair enough. I will say that I do kind of like Love Potion. They're, because, like, the thing about these Love Potionistic characters is that usually they tend to just be a character with the Love Potion, but I do like how the Love Potion character here, they do genuinely seem to be more loving. You know, like, they seem to be more kind overall. They speak more lighthearted. They speak more proper, you know, and they seem more appreciative than usual. So I like that because it adds a bit, I would say, a little bit of more depth to the character. Because on average, we've kind of not really had that much of depth, I would say, to Love Potion characters before. So I do like it, and the design. It's cool. By the way, oh yeah, just random moment I remember. I like how so apparently it seems that that in the other debut, when a character was recommended by IDK, that's not a person called IDK. I think that's just they didn't know. I think that's just we don't know who made it. Okay, because we end up having like a random call out from the character being like, "Yo, please DM me, yo. I need to know who you are." I was like, "Okay, cool, I guess." Just forgot the character. I mean, interesting, but is there not like a submission form where you can check what? How do you how I don't, whatever. We end up having Trash Can eventually managing to win because they submit the rice. Because here's the thing, Lamp went on to ask Love Potion, who didn't have the rice, because Trash Can had the rice, and Trash Can just ran by and got it. So technically, Love Potion didn't lie. I mean, they did not currently possess rice on their person. So I would say that it's okay. But yeah, Lampy ends up being cooked. So then those are the three people that are up for Elam: Pencil 1 and 2, Lampy and Mike. So it's a vote to save. Wait, it's a vote to save again? Did they say that was gonna happen? They did not say that. They did not say that. There is no way. Yeah, there is. Yeah, no, they did not say that it's vote to save again. Dude, this show is going live, but it's taking the roller coaster. We're going vote to save, then vote to eliminate, then debut, vote to save, and the next episode, you ready? Vote to eliminate again. This is the roller coaster. But yeah, I will admit it's not looking good for the microphone gang. You know, I know how I said that microphone was kind of winner vibes, but microphone was like way less spoken when I said that. Okay, in episodes 1 through 3, microphone was kind of way less spoken. They were way quieter and they were kind of giving off airy. But now, no. Now they're significantly more aggressive, and they're debatably more aggressive than Lampy. So I would say that I think that they're out, unfortunately. I would say that microphone might be out, but I'm currently not believing. So yeah, it's a bit unfortunate. I mean, like, Lampy could get out. Cause like Lampy did fuck up the challenge, you know, like they did screw it up. You know, they were supposed to go fetch the rice. The other fellas told them, go fetch the rice, you're the fastest. And then they proceeded to go there to fetch the rice, and they failed to do that in a dumb way. So it is their fault at 100%. However, this is a vote to save, and people are gonna like Lampy because Lampy's kind of fun. You know, they do the drum roll, they do this, they do that. So I think they should be fine. Pencil 1 and 2, they could just be eliminated by process of elimination, but I like Pencil 1 and 2. I'm hoping they don't get eliminated. But yeah. You can never be too sure. With a vote to save, you can never be too sure. You know. With a vote to save, it can be like this, it can be like that, it can be whatever it wants to be, and you just can't. No, and no, that's just the way of life. Okay, it's time for episode 7, and the latest episode of SOB. It's going to be a nighttime chat about that because it's going to be late. SOB 7, we've reached our peak. Go. Okay, it is the deep of night, and we are here to talk about SOB 7. Now, I'm gonna be honest, right? Now, I think that people will disagree, alright, with what I'm about to say, and that is completely fine. However, I can't shake this feeling when watching this show, is that I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how to tell it, but I'm not feeling consistency out of these characters, like, at all. I don't know. Like, they just feel different from episode to episode, you know? Like, I don't know how to say it. Like, in this episode, Text Tool ends up being like getting out of host duties because Fitbit's back, okay? And then in this episode, you kind of just you lose all of the silliness that they acquired as being a host. It's almost like that's inherited, right? So now they just become so now they're toned down way more, so they just feel different. Core Reactor is suddenly now extremely bothered about not being able to move, which is surprising considering, you know, they've been consistently entirely unbothered the past few episodes, you know, like they've been pretty nice about it, you know. In the last episode, just the last one, like, it's not been that long. I mean, it's been, like, in real life, it's been a long time, but, like, you know, in the universe, not been that long. In the last episode, they were relatively content, being like, oh, yeah, you guys can, you know, sort it out. And then, you know, in a couple episodes ago, you were like, yo, can you, like, you know, change the channel? It was, like, it was constructive, it was positive, and now we're, like, proper negative about it, to the point of downplaying ourselves significantly, right? When it's, I mean, I don't know, I think it's kind of it's weird to be like that bothered about it, because like you just weren't. There's no sign that you minded this much. Like, you minded the challenge, you didn't mind your inability to move. That's you see, those are different things. You can mind that the challenges are not made with you in mind, but you didn't necessarily mind your inability to move, right? You see, like, it's kind of like two different things. But yeah, either way, like, that character is not giving me super consistent vibes. I already talked about Microphone. I feel like Microphone has slowly turned up in general arrogance a bit, which I mean, I guess is okay, but like it's all right. And then of course Love Potion does not even manage to survive one full episode without entirely switching character. I have no idea. So yeah, I just have to point that criticism. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not feeling it. It is a bit of course, the detail of what happens when you have these longer standing, kinda like gaps, I would say. However, I will admit that, yeah, I am not feeling it. Even Fitbit in this episode feels a little bit different. They have the goofy vibes, but they have the goofy vibes in a little bit of a different way. It's a bit more confrontational than it was a couple of episodes ago, before the water. So like, I don't know. I'm personally not 100% feeling consistency out of these characters. I will have to just be honest here. Those are the reasons why. You can feel free to dispute. You can feel free to dispute. I am 100%. It's like, this is not a claim that I am too confident in. I believe it, so I'm gonna say it, but I'm not confident that I'm too confident in. I'd be totally down to switch opinion if the counter argument gets made. But anyways, what are we on? We have ourselves the show. The intro that of course gets mildly renovated to have Fitbit do the little dance now. Instead, I will say, sick ass logo to a show transition. If only it wasn't totally irrelevant. You know, it'd be sick as fuck if it went from white background to dark background and it stayed like that, you know, for a nighttime shot. But no, they just switches immediately back to white again, so it doesn't even matter. But we end up hosting the elimination with Core Reactor, which gets sent by Pencil 1, who apparently lifts all the way to the fucking mountain, to the cliff, which now exists. We end up having the elimination time song that is pretty interesting. Okay, nah, you know, maybe Fitbit's fine. But we end up having the eliminated contestant be none other than Pencil 1 and 2 with 13 votes. So I got it wrong. Microphone technically got the most votes, tied. So I'm not going to say until the microphone's a fan favorite. Still think microphone is risking it. But, you know, I will say, as my winner prediction, I do kind of think it'd be funny if they won. So... yeah, Pencil 1 and 2 end up getting out, and they officially get kicked out. Climb to the top is the challenge. You see, it's like Core, and you see Core Reactors kind of get super mad at it. It's like, okay, it's difficult to say because it's like, I get it. You see, it's like, it's the difference. It's like, I understand why you would be upset about it. It makes sense. It's just, you weren't 6 times in a row. Like, you totally weren't 6 times in a row. So what makes the 7th the one where you tick? You know, like, it's kind of, like, you see, it's like, there doesn't feel like there is a direct... event that caused it to happen. It just happens. Just around, like, not annoyed at a challenge, annoyed at a challenge. You know, it's like woke up wrong. Like, I don't know. But either way, we end up having the alliance all team up because it's like, all right, boys, we need to get Core Reactor here. The team members end up agreeing to try to do climbing. And then they end up using the spring to try to get there. Well, actually, first, the microphone ends up just doing an alley-oop because that's one of their mechanics, as we saw in the early episode. On top of Lampy, turns out that if you stand on top of Lampy, you will gain infinite limb height capabilities. So you end up climbing there, and... a microphone ends up being safe alongside Love Potion, which ends up using the spring to get up there. It seems as if the spring proceeds to not work, I guess. We don't get to see much of in that department, you know, like... I mean, in the post-credit scene, Paint Bucket gets up there and it says, like, a one-line, like, oh, hey, you know, the spring wasn't really working and stuff. But, like, I mean, I'm also kind of like, yo, we probably could have seen that, right? That would have been a useful scene to have. That way, instead of needing to explain what happened in a one-liner, you can write a scene about that. You know, it will take 10 seconds of them trying to jump on the trampoline and then it breaks or something. You know, it wouldn't take that long. You don't need to make people confused that way, because I did ask the question when I saw Paint Bucket for eliminations. I was, did you just not jump? I did ask that question, you know, in my mind, and I don't know. I'm seeing these things, and I'm like, I'm not really sure. These shows not giving me a lot of work with here, man. We eventually have Lampy officially pop out their limbs, because they can do that, and give them to Core Reactor. Core Reactor ends up apparently now knowing how to walk and climb and stuff, and they seem to be very good at it, to be fair, which, you know, considering they have never done that before, or, well, I mean, I don't know if they've never done that before, but, yeah, they seem to be doing pretty well. They end up getting up there before Hate Potion drops by. So Love Potion met Evil Mayo, and now there's Hate Potion. So I don't know what the fuck happened, because, like, did the liquids fuse? How, like, Evil Mayo is nowhere to be found. So what did happen? I mean, I like thinking the only thing that I'm thinking is that the composition of the Love Potion directly, integrates itself onto it, right? It's kind of what I'm imagining, right? The composition of the Love Potion, directly integrates the type of character, the personality that gets out. So that way, the Love Potion creates this very nice character, right? However, if you add the evilness onto it, you kind of corrupt it and create hate, right? Because it's evil, love, hate, right? So you end up having Hate Potion. So then if the Mayo and the Love Potion combined, that would work. However, the Mayo and the Love Potion combined, how the fuck did that happen? That would, what type of event would have needed to happen for those two liquids to combine? That would, interesting battle would have needed to take place. So that can't be right. Also, the liquid remains red. So, there's no way, right? If it's mixed. And also, again, Mayo has a higher viscosity than the potion, which is a fully liquid. So, then that wouldn't work either. So, okay, that theory is broken. So, what the fuck is the theory? Did the Mayo just take over the bot? You can do that. You have possessing power. You can't have possessing power, surely not. And then even if you have possessing powers, you surely just be the Love Potion again. Why would your eye now have a broken heart? So what? I don't know. What? What are you? What did you do? Did evil, then the only other option, and somehow the most realistic option, is that evil Mayo just must have told a pep talk to Love Potion while they were there, that it was just like, yo, so you gotta be evil, right? So do this, do that, and then bam, right? So then Love Potion, I convinced them, it's like, fine, I'll be evil, cracks part of their skull. What? I don't know what happened. Huh? This does not make sense. I'm telling you, it would be way cooler if I knew what happened. This show's not giving me anything. Please, give me some information. Did I miss it? I haven't gone by the name in a long time. Wait, but you're talking in the... Yeah, you're kind of talking like evil. How did that happen? No, bro, nah. This show gotta tell me more. It's that's just the one thing. It's increasing in complexity, but it's not increased in the amount of information, right? That's kind of that's kind of the thing that happens. If it's doing 4-6 minute episodes, right, and they're kind of city vibes, right, and it doesn't give that much info about if a character shows up or not, that's okay. But now we're reaching 10 minutes, the characters are starting to have arcs and stuff, and things are starting to happen, then it's like, well, no, you need to give me info. It's not, I don't know. But I have a way down to doing that until they eventually die by Coreactor, who's now got hands and stuff. Hit him with the 1-2. A Coreactor got also way still. Where did you did not have this? I swear to God, you were so chill. You were so Coreactor was the chillest dude. And now he's become happy. He become like, yeah, I'ma hit him with the 1-2. To be fair, I do not know what it's like to get limbs. But like, I don't know. I don't know. But anyways, eventually we have our fella get super worried as Fitbit goes like, we do not have recovery. Of course, this is another cause for confusion because we did. We did when Fitbit was dead. We pressed the button, and then we ended up having the recovery. Is it that easy? Probably not. I mean, there is a way to do it. Well, okay, look, we know that we 100%, if we freaking put the bro in if we wet the bro again, and then put him on the arm again, and press the button, then we would revive. As far as I am aware. Okay? As far as I'm aware, that is what would happen. However, in general, I don't think they're gonna do that. I think they're probably. This show's not that complicated. They're probably just gonna freaking the text guy is probably just gonna go like, oh yeah, you just boop, boops nose, and then it does the ray. There's probably not that complicated. Come on. But yeah, then we have a vote to eliminate. I fucking told you. I told you, bro. I told you it was so to eliminate this time. Oh my god, bro. This is the roller coaster hot in Disneyland. I think Paint Buck is gonna go because they chose to not talk about the teams, so that they didn't have to help Coreactor. Because especially the other two that were kind of super supportive and stuff, I would say are fine. So I would say that Paint Bucket has gotta go. By the way, what are TC? Oh no, you're not Paint Bucket. Wait, you're Trash Can. Why am I calling you Paint Bucket? Wait. Oh yeah, you're just Trash Can. I don't know. Yeah, you are a Trash Can. I randomly get reminded of the fact that I immediately forget. I'm sorry. Look, you look like a Paint Bucket. Okay, can we agree? Can we agree? All right, look, it doesn't even have, the most iconic. Oh yeah, look, hear me out. To defend myself here on you see, like, while I am in a way complaining about this episode, right? You also have to remember, and this is the best way for you to get vital proof that I am terrible at spotting anything. I am so bad. So like, at the same time, you can take these tips, but at the same time, I'll be the first to tell you, don't take me seriously. Listen to the words and maybe see if I've got a point. But just because I'm me, don't take me serious, because I'm a doofus. Alright, but anyways, look, for my defense, the most iconic part of the trash can is the top, right? So, if you just have an open trash can, that's just a gray rectangle, all right? And the gray rectangle, that reminded me of a paint bucket, especially with that, but right, because of the paint bucket from Asto Simbip. Yeah, that's why. I know why. You think I know why? Yes, I know why it reminds me of it. It's because the paint bucket from Asto Simbip looks surprisingly similar in terms of composition. Girl, this oozing gray, like, just yes. But anyways, that is the episode. We end up having the post-credit scene with the fellas. There's apparently a recovery center character in the fellas, which however apparently won't recover. What are they called? Yeah, apparently they're not allowed Wonder Maker Recovery Center. Apparently they're not going to recover somebody for some reason. Okay. They won't use their own ability. Now, looking at these characters, I will admit, wouldn't I, as an algebra villain, also be able to recover somebody? I think so. Wait a minute, who the fuck's the recovery center? Wait, I swear there's not a recovery center here. Who? Bro. Huh? Wait a minute. which one of these is a recovery? No, I'm sorry. I I don't, I don't, bro. It's 1 a.m. Okay, give me a break. It's 1 a.m. I'm failing. My cover, this coverage is falling apart. But oh, it looks like somebody just died. Yes, and then Walk Psycho shows up. Yay! You gotta watch 9A. Already did that. And then that is refresh the video. All right, so that is SOB. Now, this episode definitely arises at a bit of a criticism. I was quite critical of it because I don't know. This show, I do think that it has some solid potential, and I do really like its average vibe. The jokes that it did, I do really enjoy. And I do think, like its humor is for me. However, it feels like it wants the characters to be deeper than they are, because every episode it like tries to give them depth. However, in like a mildly different way, where it just feels like the characters they attack the character's depth of like a mildly different interpretation. So then it looks like the characters acting differently for no reason, right? So then it ends up kind of being a little bit of a problem, So, like, I'm not confident. And then, again, this show's not giving me info. Like, okay, I roughly get it. Love Potion met Evil Mayo, and then somehow they turned into Hate Potion. Can I know how? That is way more interesting than me having to guess how. Or like the trampoline doesn't work. Why do you need to say it as a one-liner most people will miss and probably vote them for? Just show it. Just please. It just makes more sense, like it's these little details where it's like I feel like it's missing that like attention to detail. Now I like the general vibe. The characters are cool. I do like them, and I think I like what they stand for, right? Like in general, I would say all these characters are enjoyable, and I still did enjoy watching this episode. It just does personally feel like I think it's missing a bit of attention to detail. I will be honest. I think it is. Unfortunately, it's missing a little bit. It's missing a bit of like what is missing from a viewer experience. It's not asking those questions. It's it's not asking, does this character line up with their motivations in the last episode? It's not asking that. It doesn't subtle a way into a character change. Except for Microphone, it doesn't subtle its way into that. Microphone for some reason is really subtle, but like the other characters are kind of like just one episode one vibe, one episode the other. And nothing directly happens to change it, and it's kind of It's a bit kind of alright. It's a bit kind of I'm not sure about it. But yeah, I've talked about this episode for way too fucking long o'clock. But yeah, that is my criticism of SOB 7. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy it. I like it. It just when a show tries to be grander, it arrives with some potential, with more nitpicks, because there's more things it's trying to do and more things to possibly nitpick. All right, so. Keep it on the move. You're watching it. Like don't get it. I enjoyed it. All right, you get me? All right, yes, I just did that. It could give me a bit more information as a general viewer about what is actually going on in the show, because it's not giving me a lot. So that means that I don't even have speculation fuel, because I don't have anything to speculate. It's just a thing has happened. How? Nobody fucking knows. So like it doesn't work on that aspect. So then it just nothing. We just have a thing happen for no reason. So like yeah. Outro. Okay, that will be all for today's episode. It's 1 a.m. It's 1 a.m. It is very late. Today's catch-up was delayed, again by me. I'm bad at this, which means that I won't be doing the additional keep-up section. That was optional, both in my head. I did hope that I could do it, and I would have been able to do it if I had started earlier, but I didn't start earlier because I was having friends. I know, right? And because of that, it complicated the matter a little bit. It's a bit complicated in a social life. However, with that, I didn't manage to do it. Golden Week is about to start. Paper Puppets is incoming to be the main topic for the next week. Maybe I'll add in a day of that Golden Week where we'll take a pause, take a look at the keep-ups, because a lot of stuff is released. A lot of stuff will continue to release, and I believe on the 21st is like a triple drop. So, in general, stuff's kind of happening. But, in general, we're ready to watch some big old shows and get a big step closer to knowing everything about object shows throughout the next week. The next week is an important one. Alright, that is all for today's episode. See you next time.